Today, I'm speaking with Jason Brown from the Misfit Collective. For context to the listeners and viewers, I met Jason last summer through a mutual friend. We went on a bike ride and a walk, which was terrifying for me because I still have a hard time on bikes because of an accident I was involved in. But just as we moved throughout the city, down the boardwalk, we got talking about, life, spirituality, business. And he said something to me about following nudges, which in the moment sounded kind of quirky, kind of odd. But the more I thought about it and the more I, observed his content and stuff, the more it's actually really connected and resonated in my life. And so I wanted to share some of his experience so other people can understand what that means and how you can deploy it in your own life. So Jason, I'd love you to introduce yourself and then we'll dive in.
Awesome, Mike. Love being here. That was a fun walk because it was great to connect through Curran, who I met through following the nudges. I've been watching his transformation too. And then getting introduced to you and hearing about all your worldwide travels and getting pulled to all these different locations. I was like, that's what it sounds like, following the nudges. And so something I've been doing for many years now, but really gone deep the last 2 years, is honoring those whispers, those omens. If you ever read The Alchemist, they talk about these omens that you get, the downloads that you get. A lot of people will get it when they wake up in the morning, or some little whisper will come through them, or something that wants to express. For me, what I started to realize is the more I did plant medicine, the more I did inner work, the louder these nudges got, to the point where quite often each day I can actually feel it in my body when the answer is clear, or where to go, or who to talk to, or I'll be thinking of someone and they'll just show up. Some cultures call it synchronicities. Some call it getting lucky. Some people call it random. Some call it omens. I call them the nudges. It's tapping into that and surrendering to that a bit more each day, to the point where I now live there full time. Now I've been teaching other people how to tap into that. Even meeting up with you and Curran was one of those moments. Curran texted me, hey, I'm rolling out with Mike. Do you want to drop in? And to even just drop in with you for a couple hours there was super profound, because it was clear that we were connected on this worldwide adventure that we've been on. It seems like you're like me every few months. Well, for me, it's every few days. It seems like I'm somewhere else.
Love that. So before we dive into the practicum and how we define this thing, do you have a specific recollection of when you first had this moment, whether it was an epiphany or an awakening to this, like, wait, oh, I'm recognizing this as a defined thing where I can now actually go back and think through other times where this has been there, but now I actually understand what it is. What was that moment? What was that experience for you?
It was actually with Curran. I was at a breathwork session with him. And it was during an hour-long breath work with this amazing practitioner named Jen Mansell. And when you do breath work like this for an hour, I was stunned at what was happening to my body. I was getting a lot of energetic releases. My body was moving with energy. At the same time, I was getting new wisdom. Ideas were unlocked and problems in my life, and just like this massive clarity. I was just like, wow. And I remember I did breath work twice, and the second time was at Curran's event. And he would give us Post-it notes to write down the downloads. And I still have those Post-it notes. One of the things that I wrote down was like, welcome back to myself, where it was like, hey, you've been waiting for this moment. And then you've recognized your whole life, there's been these whispers, these things that we all get, right? It's like that little, that's why I call them nudges. It's like that little nudge. Maybe you get it in the shower. Maybe you get it when you're on a bike ride. Maybe you get it when you're walking. And for me to have all those flood in through breath work, it was so profound. And the answers it gave me in my life immediately were better than anything intellectually I'd been coming up with for weeks. And so what I started doing was applying that wisdom, not full time, because I was still like cautious of it. I still didn't believe it fully. But what I started realizing was the downloads I would get. That's why they encourage you to journal after breathwork. Is I started putting them into practice. And the more I did that, things started to accelerate. And I was like, wow, this wisdom is on a different trajectory timeline than my intellectual thinking. And so when I would follow them, things would just fall into place. So luck started to happen more. I started to run in more randomness. And welcome to downtown Toronto. I'm currently in the park, so I hope everyone enjoys all the epic noises and people walking by. Well, what would happen is I would record from the download I got. And then uncanny things would happen. Someone would come into my consciousness while I was in breathwork. And then I would see them sometimes within minutes or hours after leaving breathwork, or they would just randomly call me. And I started to realize that this isn't random and that the synchronicities are there if you tap into it. And what that did is it let me go deeper and just build up that confidence that, hey, there's this whole other realm that I'm not using. And I started to experience life differently. And the big aha was, I've been living intellectually, consuming knowledge, looking for life hacks, doing biohacking, right? Going to every mastermind I could go to. But this was experiential. And it was that moment of moving out of my head and realizing I was moving into my body, which I now understand is moving into like a heart frequency, and like letting that wisdom combine with my intellectual wisdom. And then my whole experience of the world started to shift. And it was like, I could tap into the field, and it really helped with breathwork because it got my brain out of the way. I've told some business people before to kind of have this concept, because most of them are like, yeah, dude, I'm totally not doing that. But I'll be like, imagine holding a board meeting with epic board members, and then they kick you out of the room, but they help propel your business. That's what it was like going into breathwork with me. It was like all my intellectual thoughts got pushed aside, and then all this beautiful wisdom came in. And when I followed it, everything got faster and more aligned at a pace that I never expected before and didn't experience before. And so it was breathwork that kicked it off. And I now do that all the time. So every time I feel stuck, it's like, go back to the breath, because there's like wisdom waiting for you there. And so when I feel friction now, it's like, okay, go back to that modality is the one that's I've found to be the most accessible cheat code that I've found.
Yeah. Why is it sometimes that our intellect is the dumbest thing to follow?
I actually think
Why do we
so,
think we can outsmart everything?
Exactly. So as I've gone super deep into this and really gone more into the esoteric and the mystical and done my own inner work. And again, it's like, it starts with the concept, but then you have to experience it. So experiencing other realms in, taking plant medicine like psilocybin or DMT or LSD, working with, plant medicine and shamans and professionals in that realm and surrendering more to that has brought in this wisdom that isn't ego driven. And so the way that I look at it is the intellectual pursuit is typically your ego who doesn't live in the present, right? Your ego typically is dwelling on the past and wanting to change what happened or dwell on it, or it's living in the future of it's like, hey, I'm not done yet. I need more. And I found with my ego, and when I talk to others, it seems like our egos are always consuming. It's like they want more. I want to accumulate something I don't have. Ego doesn't like living in the present. But when I would do breath work or plant medicine, it would put me into the present and I would get all this beautiful wisdom. And I wasn't trying to accumulate anything. It was like giving me wisdom that I could feel. And so what I found is like the intellectual isn't a feeling, and the mystical, that heart-centered frequency that you get through these modalities, it's like, it's more of a feeling. And then what I realized is my ego is on the hunt for this feeling. It wants to experience this feeling. We think it's things that we want, but it's the experience and the feeling that the thing gets us. And it's what I realized is like, I was in the intellectual pursuit of a feeling that can only be experienced. And I was like, okay, well then the order of things is backward. Then it's like, it's experiences I'm after. And I feel like when the experience that I'm after is ego driven, once I get it, that feeling disappears pretty quickly. And then the ego's like, give me more. I want something even greater. I want to reproduce that feeling. And I realized I was in this a never ending cycle. Like I would achieve these things and then I would experience for a little while. It's like, it's like in basketball. It's like you win the championship, you party for a few nights, you go to Vegas, you have the parade, and then it's like, okay, now what? We got to do it again. But when I switched it around and I would experience the feeling first through these other modalities, that's what stunned me. It's like, wait a minute, these feelings are present when I do breath work. They're present when I do meditation. They're present when I do plant medicine. That means I don't actually have to go accumulate it to feel it. I can actually feel it first.
Right.
That's when the wisdom unlocked for me. And I started studying some things like quantum consciousness and quantum energy. And what the download was through one of my coaches, Matthew Patty, he put it all in place for me. He's like, yes, dude, your energy precedes you. Meaning all these feelings that you're hunting with ego and intellectual wise, you can actually feel them first. And the more you feel them first, the more they'll show up. And that's what helped me really understand what was happening to me through breathwork and plant medicine. When I got my brain out of the way, I was able to feel at a whole new level. And that taught me to feel first. And when you feel first, it keeps showing up. That's why the synchronicities roll in, and the serendipity and the luck and the like, wow, I was just feeling this. And then the person that has that same resonance just seems to be standing there no matter what city I'm in. Right. So if that makes sense. So it's like, it taught me how to flip my life around from that intellectual, ego-driven accumulation goal every day. What am I going to crush? I got to get something. I got to get something, to starting my day with be the something first, and then enjoy the ride of what shows up.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And I think, myself included, and a lot of people probably listening are like, yeah, I've done this thing over the decade that I've owned my agency. Not to say that it's been, a mega massive like company, but I've also like created freedom for myself. I've also provided for other people and employed people. And, I only work on the things that I like. And there's a lot of freedom that comes with that. But equally, like anytime I've had a success, like I had this app back in the day and we went on, Dragon's Den had a spin-off show and we went on and got a deal. And I was like, oh my God, this has got to be so exciting. But the moment it ended, it was like, cool, what's next? And I feel that all the time where like I'm not so I'm aiming to take these actions and do all this work to create this joy. And then I achieve the joy, but the joy is so fleeting. It's so quick. And so it passes us by. And like, I find for periods of my life, like I didn't want to celebrate anything because I knew I would get this high and then this low on the back end. And that low created this drive of like, well, now that you've done, something at level 3, what does level 4 look like? What does level 5 look like? What's the next, the biggest? And sometimes I feel like you're just chasing, it's like you're running up a flight of stairs, but each stair is like progressively taller than the next stair.
Yes.
And you're a little bit stronger, but you're not so strong that you're automatically bumping to the next thing. And it is, there is a question that I ask a lot of people I coach. It's like, where does that end? Where like what is the actual thing that you want? Because there's a lot of things that you're going to say. The first 10 things you're going to say are not actually what you want. They're the things you think you want because of whatever circumstance, but achieving those, like you said, is going to do that. So I think there's a great appeal to, hey, that feeling, that energy is in you. You don't have to work 80 hours a week. You don't have to grow your business to whatever to get there. Like, why don't you sample it first? And why don't you create the ability for yourself to live in that moment on command or through these practices? There's a huge appeal to that.
Yes. So even just listening to you, like you mentioned, like freedom and joy, and it's like, what that feels like now because you did it through accumulation before. So there's these feelings that we're trying to reproduce. And what I realized is I was running my life backwards. So it was constantly, hey, I will feel that when I get it. Right. So another way to look at that is I will believe that or feel it when I see it. So when it shows up, I get to think, what if you flipped your life around the other way? And it's like, when I believe it, I always see it. When I feel it first, I keep re-experiencing it. It will keep showing up. And so it's flipping that around, being it first, your energy precedes you. And what I realized was through these accumulation successes and failures, there's feelings I don't want to reproduce and there's feelings I totally want to reproduce. But I also realized the memory recall of those moments is right there. It just sits under the surface. We can recall it. And it's like, okay, so we only ever live right now. Like there is only ever now.
Yeah.
So when you go get a memory, you're not going backwards to experiencing it. You're pulling it off the shelf and experiencing it right now. And through plant medicine, I was able to rewire a whole bunch of experiences where now when I go get it off the shelf, I feel completely different about it. And I was like, wait, that's alchemy. Like I changed the experience of my past and I'm actually only ever experiencing it right now. So it's like, wait a minute, I think that's one of the reasons, like, for example, psilocybin is so powerful for people with deep trauma and PTSD. It's because what happened to me is it completely rewired a whole bunch of trauma into me not only accepting it, but seeing the beauty in it, like immediately. That's why it's so powerful. But it was rewiring my alchemy of my past. Yeah. And then through some other coaching, especially with Matthew, who I do a lot of coaching with now, and on kind of quantum consciousness, I started to realize, wait a minute, that also goes forward. So I can take my future now and experience it right now. Right. And that's where I think a lot of people screw up their manifestation or their vision board or whatever, their Pinterest things, right? It's like what we think we want, like you said, those 10 things is actually a sensation. It's a feeling that you want to get from the accumulation. Yeah. And what I realize is you can actually rewire your future and experience your future right now. Okay. So if you grab that feeling you got from joy from doing that app when you guys won for a little while on Dragon's Den, you can go right to that memory, experience it now, sit into that feeling, and now you can use that feeling every day to send forward, to be like, actually, that is what I'm looking to reproduce in all the projects I'm up to, is to get to that feeling again. Well, what happens if you actually start with that feeling and you start your day with embodying that feeling and you send that forward? What I've noticed when you do that, when you sit in that higher frequency where you've been in that, it's typically some sort of joy feeling, some sort of feeling of being free, some sort of feeling of feeling in love, not intellectual love, but that feeling, that energetic feeling that could, that we've all felt. It's just like, what is that? And it's something else. And that's why I love the breath work and the plant medicine, because you feel so much of that. It's like this epic overwhelmingness that you can start your day with that feeling and send it ahead of you, because your energy actually precedes you. And then instead of trying to accumulate it, you are it. And when you resonate from that frequency, it is uncanny how rapidly it will show up and reverberate back to you in all these other forms, which can feel like, wow, I was in that frequency and then the exact person I needed showed up in my life. Oh, I was in that frequency and I experienced that joy much more rapidly in my business. I didn't have to take the stairs. You brought up taking the stairs. So now I say, this is how you take the rocket ship in your life and your business. Is it starts with you. So you be it before you see it. And as you be it, it keeps showing up. And that's like rocket fuel, not that slog of going up the stairs, looking to accumulate it on the next plateau. Yeah. I lived that life for so long, but then when you switched it around, it's like, that's what magically shows up. And I really feel like it's that alchemical magic that I think religion has been trying to tell us, right? That it's inside us. And when you go first, it shows up and it shows up and it shows up. And that's the nudge.
So love it. What I'd love to understand, so myself, I'm a plant medicine believer. I work with an angel channeler. I work with a number of, practitioners who would be considered woo woo, but I've experienced healing like compared to nothing else. I haven't actually done plant medicine, but that's kind of in my near future. But what I'd love to do is like, what's the 101 for someone who's listening or who's hearing and saying, okay, well, I don't know if I'm going to go in the jungle and do ayahuasca. I don't know if I'm all in on this, but this sounds appealing. Like the outcome of this sounds like, holy shit, like I need some of that in my life. What are the like couple of things that someone who's maybe skeptical, who maybe is afraid of some of these concepts or some of these ideas, like what's something that someone can do to in the early stages to like get that buy-in, to be like, oh, I can now observe this thing slightly different. Like, what are the small practices that someone who's super far outside of this, who's like, but I want that thing, but like, I need to dip my toe in the water. Like, what's that 101 for someone who just wants to like see the power of it, understand it a little bit without going to the deep end to start?
I love it. I believe all bridges that help you go more inward are valid. So for some people, that is plant medicine. It might even be a certain type of plant medicine. For me, it was psilocybin. I was fortunate enough to jump in where I took a super high dose my very first time. It was over 8 grams. For anyone listening and doing the research, that is, I don't even know if they have a word for it. It's like superhero dose. Now, I'm so thankful for that because it shot me into the other realm, and I saw so many things and got so many downloads and rewired so much trauma so rapidly that I didn't need any more convincing. I was like, okay, how deep does the rabbit hole go? In fact, I want to be the rabbit hole. I want to be the rabbit, right? It's like, that was it. But I also have had deeply, profound moments through breathwork. And there's lots of different styles. I find ones like that Jen Mansell teaches, where it's that longer, where you're really going into another state. Not so much the biohacking Wim Hof style. That's useful, I think, for your body big time. But this is more to actually tap into, some of that other wisdom. I think that's super powerful and very accessible and so safe. So I encourage people to try that. But I also recognize there's lots of these things bubbling up. So I think all of this is irrelevant if you don't integrate the messages. And so I actually think getting into community first is the most important step, to be around others that are already walking internally. Let them be the bridge for you. And that's what I feel like is happening to us. It's like we're the bridge in ourselves to go deeper, but we're meant to turn around and light the way for others that can now hear us. So I had heard about plant medicine for years, and it's like I couldn't even hear those people because I was like, it was too woo-woo for me until it wasn't. Right. Yeah. And then I became the bridge. And now I may seem way too woo-woo to most people. They're like, what? You're using nudges to live your life and you do breathwork all the time? It's like, yes, because I can't go back. And it's wonderful. And it's way better on this other side. So I'm in a mastermind with Aubrey Marcus. I would encourage your listeners he's a great bridge to go listen to all his guests because they tend to come from very successful cultural how we would deem success, but then they've all gone inward. So I find his podcast super helpful to me, but I'm also in his mastermind. And, one of the things he talks about all the time is not only all bridges are valid, but to actually put the messages into place. So integrate what you learned through any of these modalities. And that modality might be breathwork. It might be meditation for you. It might be a Joe Dispenza training. It might be plant medicine. One of the things I've been doing a lot is sound healing, which I find super easy to access and helpful. Just like go to a sound healing or listen to some frequencies, go to ecstatic dance. I never thought I would go to wait a minute. We're going to listen to some awesome beats. We're all going to dance around by ourselves, mostly with our eyes closed. I was like, that's dumb. And then I did it. And I was like, this is amazing because I entered into a different consciousness while dancing. And it's like you break through that your BS of like, oh, do I look cool? How ridiculous am I right now? Right. And then you just let it go. And then you go to this other state. So like things like ecstatic dance, sound healing, frequencies, breath work, all those are so accessible. Right. But the point is you're accessing it just for the experience. It's actually to receive the wisdom and apply the wisdom. So the thing that I've really noticed as I've traveled into all these masterminds and spiritual communities around the world is there's a lack of integration. And some of the kind of cosmonauts, those that have gone before us, like Ram Dass, like Alan Watts, you might have heard some of these names. Andrew Weil, he talks about this all the time. It's like, when you get the message, hang up the phone, meaning integrate. So the whole reason to do any of these things is to practically integrate it into your life. And that's how I've switched my coaching now. It's where I'm teaching people how to actually practically apply this 5D woo-woo-ness into your everyday. So your 3D experience is way more fulfilling. And I think that's the point. It's like, what's the point of going into shadow work and dealing with the stuff that's blocking you from feeling fulfilled if you're not actually going to get to the other side and enjoy life and have more of what you said, that joy, that freedom, that love? I think that's the point. And what I really encourage people that are new and want to start taking some steps inward, it really focus on what are those messages that you can now implement as you go deeper inward. That's really what it's all about. And there's so many different bridges to access yourself. But if you don't apply the new self, you're just going to be reinforcing the loops you've already been running for decades. And for me, I was running them for 5 decades. I'm 50 now, right? So a long-winded answer, but to say, look at all the bridges and find yours. For me, it's breathwork seems to be mine, and sound healing. Those are my 2 faves outside of plant medicine. But the bigger wisdom is find a community to integrate with and support each other. And as you go deeper, go, go, go. But don't forget to turn around and see who's going to follow in your steps now. And that those of us that have gone a little bit deeper, we already feel called to turn around and help the next group. And I got to tell you, I've been so stunned by who can hear me with messages like this and who can't in my life. And it's been a fun ride to see, who pops in and who are the synchronistic nudges that show up and be like, hey man, can you lend a hand on this inner walk that I'm beginning? It's been super fun to see who shows up and who's ready. Just like I was so stunned when I suddenly was ready for this path, because I was totally not on that path at all. I was in accumulation mode for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, that part of the story I think resonates because like someone who doesn't talk about that path first and then talks about this other side, there's this disconnect. There's this like, okay, well, like you feel like galaxies away, but to hear
Yeah.
like, hey, for 5 decades, I was in this thing. I had this moment where I was like, oh, there might be this other way of looking at it. And that brought me down a rabbit hole. And now I have, this peace and this wisdom to share. And like, through my short period of time knowing you and, just on that bike ride, speaking with you, it was very clear that you are living on a very different frequency, even from where I am. And I'm retuning. Like I've got a Reiki session with this girl who's amazing. The one who fixed my depression last week, not fixed, but just like helped me explore this crippling depression I was having. She's like, cool, let's go talk to it. Like, what does it look like? Where is it in your body? Let's approach it slowly. Let's bring this. Let's do this. And like within 30 minutes, I was like crying a bit. And I was like, I like super motivated to move again. And not to say that that's the be all and end all fix, but as I'm moving toward these frequencies, I can tell that you're just living up here. And like, obviously there's work to sustain it. And obviously there's
Yes.
moments of this and that, like
Yes.
your life and the dynamics will change and there will be moments of whatever. But I do get a real sense from you that the even with the ups and downs and the dips, there's still this like, it's still up here. And
Mhm.
maybe it was like down here before. So like the
Totally.
dips exist, but the main plateau is significantly higher. And that's a beautiful thing to experience and something I'm actively working towards. So I think the people
Yeah.
listening today, got a really good sense of, the validation and the credibility about the idea, but like seeing how it's developed in you is really powerful. And I
Thank you.
agree, breath work and sound healing. Sound healing was like, I got explained the science of it once and I was like, all right, I'll buy in. But I actually can go into a fully like, I can like leave my body during a sound healing. What I do for a sound bath is I will actually pick 3 areas or 3 stories or places in my life where I actually want to go visit. And I can go watch it like a movie, like I'm on a hallucinogenic. Like I can go watch stuff in my life just while a sound bath is going on. Like I can go watch it and like interact with it. And it's like never expected it, but like was an amazing surprise that came up. So I agree. Those two are super powerful and it's very accessible. If you're listening saying, I don't know where to start, I'll link up the woman that you mentioned, but there's also like, that also exists on, Insight Timer. If you're on a, shoestring budget, you just need, hey, I just want to experience it. You can go and listen to these things for free. So they exist, they're out there. And so I'll link some up in the show note that I feel are relevant. Dude, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this. So if someone's listening and they're like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
all in. I need more Jason in my life. Who are the people
Yes.
that you work with primarily and where can they find that?
Yeah. So right now I am coaching 13 different CEOs, right? So looking for leaders, people that have put wins on the board in their life, but they're recognizing that they too have a drumbeat like I did, where it's like, I've fulfilled a lot, but that fulfillment doesn't sustain. And they recognize that there's something missing. And that's the inner path. So helping those that have already got some wins on the board unlock that inner place to bring more of that joy and freedom and new level of success, a new way of keeping score in their life. So really helping people change how they're keeping score and really changing how they're living, switching into that I'm going to be it before I see it versus that accumulation life that we all live. So that. And then the second thing now that we're building is First Place, which is going to be like Soho House, but, a place to gather to experiencing these modalities with people that are on all different levels of this experience, and bringing that woo-woo nature into a lot more practicality, right? So, like I'm back in Toronto right now, and it's like, yeah, I know thousands of epic people here, but it's like, where do we congregate? Where can I go and have some sound healing? Where can I go and get, some ecstatic dance? Where can I go in the coffee shop has the people I want to roll with that are on that frequency? So that as we go deeper, others can also access our depth so they can then experience it for themselves and move from that intellectual life to the experiential life, and then turn around and help who they're meant to help. And I feel like we need to create this new style of temple. When you look around in cities, you can see what we celebrate, right? You just walk downtown Toronto. It's all the banks, right? All the telcos, all the insurance companies. That's what we've celebrated as the idol. And I feel like we need a new style of gathering place and temple to go and honor this inner work and have fun with it, and recognize that what really is happening is there's a feminine energy, not biology, but a feminine energy, the mystical that's rising in all of us. Even those entrepreneurs that we're in that warrior mode of crushing it. And we're like, hey, what's this happening? Why am I into this now? And it's bringing both of those sides into balance for each of us, because that's how we actually heal ourselves and the planet. It's that higher level of consciousness that we practically apply here in the 3D. I tried the 5D and I've gone offline for a while and went deep, wear the robes, grew the crazy beard. And I was like, okay, this is fun, but I need to get back to the 3D. And really that's where I feel the most fulfilled. And so it's like, where can we gather and experience these 5D modalities, unlock, get the cheat codes, get the downloads, and apply them together so we all rise together in this new way. I think bubbling up for a lot of us. And I feel one of my missions is to help make that more accessible, especially for those like me that got caught up at really chasing life. And it's like, how about instead of chasing it, we emanate it, and helping people figure out the cheat codes for that. That's my jam. That's what I'm working on. And we're now creating a place to actually congregate to do that together.
Awesome, dude. So you can find that at themisfitcollective.com. I'll link it in the show notes. Is there a platform or a place that if people want to get in touch, follow up, see what's going on, social, email list? Like, what's the best place to find and get in touch with you?
I'm on all the socials. I joined Threads yesterday. If you want to hit me up there, hilarious. I don't know if you guys have tried that yet. So on Instagram and the Facebook platforms, you can get me at 16 Miles to Go, which is a whole other podcast story about why it's named that. And then on Twitter, I'm the Jason Brown. And I love DMs. I love hearing the stories. And if you're listening to this and you're like, man, that still sounds a little too woo-woo, that drum beat's there, come talk to me. I will help you practically apply this. You don't need to only wear the robes and grow the beard, although an epic beard is fun.
Amen. You can look like a wizard. How do you pass that up?
Yeah. But wizard mode is fun, but what's even more fun is like that freedom and joy and playfulness, and recognizing like you can actually play that game here on this field and feel way more fulfilled throughout your day.
Brother, thank you so much. I'm in Toronto in a few weeks. Let's catch up.
Yeah, brother. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.